for you to mute your microphones. Yeah, thank you very much. I think there is one still loud. You can just mute the microphone so we can start. Okay, shall we start? So this is the Deep Tech in Latin America and Iberia. So now we are shifting to English. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Our esteemed guests and the fellow panelists. I am honored to be here today as your moderator for this engaging panel discussion at BioLatam Digital 2024. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Márcio de Paula. I speak from Brazil, and I bring over 2 decades of experience in the life science sector, spanning pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, consumer health, and medical devices. As a business consultant and entrepreneur, my career has been dedicated to creating new business from the ground up with a focus on business strategy, business development, open innovation.
Mazio, we can't hear you if you're still speaking. You muted yourself.
Yeah, now you can hear me?
Much better.
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. So let's start again. Let's start over. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just asking someone to mute the microphone. Probably someone mute mine as well. So let us just start. So welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, esteemed guests and fellow panelists. So my name is Márcio de Paula. I speak from Brazil. And currently, I am at the helm of the Brazilian Pharmaceutical Innovation Network, RBIF, a platform born from the collective ambition of innovation professionals in the pharmaceutical industry to bolster the innovation ecosystem within Brazil's health sector. Since its inception in February 2020, RBIF has actively worked towards enhancing pharmaceutical innovation across the nation, is structured around 5 main pillars, and formalized through 4 significant committees. And today, I look forward to delving into the world of deep tech in Latin America and the Iberian Peninsula, alongside with distinguished panelists, exploring the vast opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. Thank you all for joining us in this important conversation. So let us introduce our esteemed panelists, each of beacon of innovation within the deep tech ecosystem in Latin America and the Iberian Peninsula. Their diverse experiences and pioneering work are paving the way for a future filled with promise and innovation. So before addressing our first topic, I would like to make you aware that you can pose questions through the chat available in the platform. If time allows, we'll get through your comments and questions at the end of this panel. Thank you. So we welcome Ignacio Peña, the visionary founder of Surfing Tsunamis, known for his remarkable work in catalyzing transformation across industries. Joining us is Arthur Silva, leading the diagnostics unit at Quilaban, who has been instrumental in driving forward the diagnostic sectors in Portugal. We are privileged to have Santiago March, a luminary in health technologies and precision medicine from FunSalud in Mexico, and Edward Perrello from Deep Science Ventures. He brings expertise in spearheading innovative companies focused on agriculture and ecosystem services, and myself, as previously introduced to you all. So, as we embark on this exploration, our aim is to delve into the heart of deep tech development within our regions, understanding the intricate barriers to innovation and the profound impact of cross-border collaboration. Together, we shall uncover the paths that lie ahead. So let us start with an open question to our esteemed guests. So I would like to pose this and would like to start with Ignacio. And so we can follow on with Artur and then Santiago and Edward. If you would like to better introduce yourself, just be comfortable with. So, in the context of deep tech in Latin America and the Iberian Peninsula, what do you see as the most significant barriers to innovation? And how can we collectively work to overcome them? So, Ignacio, thank you for joining us. So, you should start.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here. Just as complementing what you just said, I'm an economist and I worked 15 years in strategy consulting, mostly at the Boston Consulting Group based in Brazil, and have a master's in an MBA in Wharton. And then I came back 13 years ago to Argentina as other country in very bad shape and thought about how we could create a better future. And basically, that points to the question that you asked, because I mean, if you want to create a better future for Latin America, it's basically through innovation. And I think that the way forward, the way to create a future of abundance, inclusion, and regeneration, which I've been trying to do from Surfing Tsunamis, which is a catalyst of high impact initiatives, and Air Capital VC fund, focusing on early stage deep tech startups. Has basically been to try to catalyze a future of where Latin America becomes a region of innovation, building upon what I see as a major wave of business model innovation and product innovation, building on top of the first wave of internet, and second sort of mobile devices, sort of apps. We have seen thousands of app-based startups emerging in the region. And the question today, I think, is how do we build on that and build on the powerful startup ecosystem and venture capital ecosystem that we have to move on to technology innovation, particularly deep tech innovation. That is a question that we ask ourselves together with the American Development Bank and the MD Lab and several other early stage VC funds, as well as Deloitte, in a report that we published last year. And basically, the answer that we came up with is in a report that is available for free on the internet, Deep Tech, the New Wave. The answer that we came up with is that there is a massive opportunity ahead of us, because there is a huge technology tsunami that is headed our way, powered by deep tech innovation in areas such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, space, etc., blockchain. And that creates the conditions for us to really create innovation at scale and sort of create technology startups at scale. That revolution has already begun. We have hundreds of startups in the region. We have VC funds that are active in this space, either with a focus on this space, but also investing occasionally in this space. But we're still very far from the potential, and we could look at it in two ways. First, I think that you see hundreds of thousands of full-time dedicated, full-time researchers across the region publishing a reasonable amount of papers and a much lower level of patents, and a tiny amount of startups. So the first challenge, I think, is sort of translating, or the big challenge that we have is translating all the human capital that we have, amazing human capital that we have, into startups that translate that billions into technologies and products that are brought to the world. And I think the biggest barrier to make that happen is having sufficient early stage venture capital activity. We need more accelerators, incubators, and early VC funds. Funds like GridX that was mentioned in the opening, like CITES or SF 500 in Argentina. And we don't see that happening in Ganesha Lab in Uruguay, Lab Plus Ganesha Lab in Chile, Lab Plus in Uruguay, but we don't see that happening across the region. And the second way to answer that question is geographically, and there what you see is that most of the patents, most of the researchers are based in large economies, particularly in Brazil, but also in Mexico, and but that doesn't translate in sort of a proportional amount of this startup activity and VC funding. So I think that if you focus on how do we activate the largest economies, the largest ecosystems, I think the challenge becomes sort of opening the eyes of investors about the opportunity that deep tech innovation represents for investors in terms of high returns and sort of massive opportunities for growth, and sort of shifting the mindset from, in the case of Brazil, startups that are digital and focus on the Brazilian market to startups that are deep tech and focus on global markets. And the answer to do that is, again, early stage venture capital activity.
Very good. So the insufficient early stage ecosystem. So we gotta deploy this and try to get better in attracting more investment, but also to support the early stage startups that are just blooming in our continent. That's good to hear. I do agree with your position. So I would like also to hear Arthur Silva on this point. Arthur, what do you think is like the most significant barrier to innovation? So we are in the Iberia, so it's the same as in here as infrastructure for nurturing this early stage startups, or what do you think about this?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to say two words. First of all, to the Portuguese Association, PBio, for this invitation. And I would like to say hello and good morning and good afternoon to all the fellow people that can assist us online. Just a brief note from my side, I'm a pharmacist. I'm currently the head of diagnostic and member of the board of Quilaba, a Portuguese company. We distribute products in the healthcare sector and diagnostic, and we've been in the market for the last 50 years. So, Marcio, that's a really great question. What barriers do I consider? One of all the main in our country and in the African Portuguese countries where Quilaba operates currently, such as Angola, Mozambique, Guinea, and Cape Verde. The first barrier that we outstand, of course, it's the resources available to develop. So these countries, as you all know, they have like a really low lack of people with a high education level. So the resources are really low. Another point that I would really like to say, being partners of NGS business in the Portuguese market and African markets, we represent Illumina for these markets. We believe that the NGS business has a really high impact in this market, and the lack of bioinformatics has a really strong dependency on the development of the strategy. So machine learning, artificial intelligence, this is something that we believe that has a huge impact. Another point that I would really like to outstand, it's about the accuracy of the models for this market, for African markets and for the Portuguese market. So this is a different kind of genomics. We all know that it's personalized strategy, but it's dependent of the background of each country. I would also like to give another point that it's really important when we speak about these barriers, all the regulatory barriers that happen in the markets. So this is something that makes a huge impact when we're speaking about policy markers, the different industry stakeholders. So this has a huge impact. And of course, we have to always think in a sustainable way. How can we become this more affordable to develop this kind of businesses in this market? So in a quick glimpse, I would say, besides the resources as a main pillar, I would outstand the regulatory affairs and all those policymakers, and nevertheless make this more sustainable and affordable for a huge range of population in the markets that I know. So hopefully I went to your point. If not, please outstand any other question, and I'm totally available.
That's good. It's just a starting point, Arthur. So thank you very much for starting and And relating to like human resources, I think is we cannot do innovation without people. So how to better train this to have it then available in the markets that we need to develop this solution. So this is also a great point that you raise, aside others like regulatory barriers that we all face this, and so a bit of convergence would be great. And so we have a panel on convergence and regulatory convergence during BioLatam as well. So I would like to invite Santiago to this discussion. And so let us check in the North America, so part of Latin America, so in the Northern Hemisphere, how things are doing. And what do you think, Santiago, in terms of what is the main blockage or the main problem face to develop innovation within Latin America and Iberia?
Sure. Thank you, Marcio. First of all, I want to thank Pragmatec and Eusebio for this invitation. It's an honor to be with a lot of experts, and I think that I will learn a lot of today. So our vision in the Mexican Health Foundation is that Mexico, first of all, there are different health systems in Latin America. So it's not the strategy. You must adapt. You must focus on each country. So my first advice is you must know all the details of the health system. For example, in Mexico, we have a private medicine and we have the public medicine, the private sector and the public sector. Sometimes they are working together. Most of the time, they are working separate. These two form the national health system in Mexico. So if we are talking about technology or new technologies, so we have a lot of private hospitals in Mexico that have the access to these technologies, but the challenge, the big challenge, is to bring these new technologies for healthcare to the public hospitals. So how can we do that in Mexico? There are so many strategies, so many ideas. I just want to let you know a few of them. First, regulatory issues. So we must advance that the regulatory framework, it's okay for new technologies. Second, validation studies. As Arthur explains, we must validate if we have an algorithm, if we have a new software, if we have a new test, we must validate with Mexican patients, with Mexican population. Some entrepreneurs and companies, they don't want to do this. They prefer to go to the market and to go to the salespeople, and they don't have a good understand that the validation, it's a key point. If you validate with Mexican patients, the acceptance, the sociability of this new technology and the authorities, they will be more than happy if they will support you. Okay, and the other is to have a technology that solves a health problem, specialized. For example, in Mexico we have diabetes and kidney and vision problems. So if you have a technology that can solve some issues of dialysis of diabetic patients, if you are on the you have the great idea. There are so many apps, there are so many softwares focused on health problems of other countries that not apply. There are good developments, good ideas, but don't bring the solution. Focus on the health problems which form the most of the budget of the public health system in this country. So this is my first comment. Thank you.
Great, Santiago. And also it's important to think how can we get access to people in the public system. So the same in Brazil, that we have like 75% of the population depends on public systems. So if you have technology, it must be affordable somehow, and not just to think on institutional market, but also out of pocket, which might work in some of the regions that we are acting. So thank you for your contribution, Santiago. I would like to hear a little bit from Edward. Edward is at the Deep Science Ventures in the UK. So what are the perspectives there in UK? And also, what do you think, Edward, is like the main point that difficults innovation in Latin America and Iberia nowadays?
Thanks, Marcio. Can I get a mic check? Is the sound coming okay?
Yeah, it's just great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so I'm from London, but I've spent the last couple of years in Costa Rica, where I've been building a venture builder program. Deep Science Ventures is a venture studio. So rather than an accelerator or an incubator that takes existing companies and existing concepts and tries to put them back on track, what we do is we look at products, services, and companies that should exist to satisfy existing customer demand, where no one in the market is doing that. And then we align that with where we can also fix problems with the environment or climate or something like that. Nelson, can I ask you to just mute yourself, please? Thank you. Nelson, could you mute yourself? Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, there is another microphone. Sorry, Edward, to interrupt you. So we can just mute this microphone. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. So typically what you see, and this is a universal problem, is most people starting a science company, they are doing a technology push, right? They've invented a technology, they pick something up and they say, I'm going to go start a biotech company. And actually the real solution that the customers want is chemical or engineering based. And most of the time what you see with science innovation, and I've made this mistake myself with my own company, is you spend 2 or 3 years trying to find product market fit before you eventually get it. And by that point, you've got a toxic cap table and you spent a lot of time and money building something that no one actually wanted. So venture studios change that. And what we do is we find the right partners in different innovation ecosystems to bring together around a particular policy that we want to implement through the design and construction of new companies. So in Costa Rica, we're focused on delivering the national bioeconomy strategy by developing companies that meet those goals. So these programs are market-led, customer-led, problem-led, impact-led, and they are market pull rather than academia. And I want to pick up something that Ignacio said, which is we need more incubators and accelerators. I would say you don't. And Latin America has the opportunity to learn from the mistakes that the Europeans and the Americans have made by doubling down on incubators and accelerators, which take existing teams with the wrong products, doing tech push and trying to put all this effort into them to get them to where they need to be. But what you could actually do is just say, we're not going to do that. We're going to build the right things from scratch, take our time, do the research, and see what the customers, society, the climate, healthcare needs really are in hospitals. So I'd say that's a key piece. Second, in Latin America, and I can't speak for the Iberian Peninsula, but in LATAM itself, I see that there's much less sophistication in investors when it comes to deep tech. It's hard to do deep tech in the UK. You get a lot of like old British men saying things like, oh, you're doing a nanotechnology oriented amendment. Fascinating. I've invested in a gene editing company. Is that anything like it? And it's like, well, no, it's not, but you're kind of on the right track. Whereas when I've spoken with early stage investors in Latin America, they tend to be more like, well, mostly I'm focused on real estate. It's actually quite hard to find those very early stage investors who want to put their money into very, very risky deep tech because there's a lack of appetite for high risk technological investing. So that's something that really means that then you kind of have to bring in the specialist early stage investors from outside that region, or find a way to bring them together at a regional level. I would love to see that. And that's been quite hard to do because, once you're working in one country, you're kind of there. But I've struggled to find sort of continental or regional level focused investors that work all the way from, say, Mexico down to Argentina. And that would be lovely to see. Final piece that I'll say is really around the sophistication of the founders themselves. So I would say quite comfortably that sort of science education of entrepreneurial skills in scientists is about 10 years behind what I've seen in Europe and the States, where these programs are quite advanced. They've made the mistakes, they've learned, and there's just an ecosystem there already. Latin America is catching up really fast, but what I also see is missing And the difference between a great founder and an average one is international experience. So I've worked with fantastic founders in Latin America who've been outside and then decided to come back. And of course, then you have to deal with the issue of brain drain. How do you get them to come back if they have left to get that international experience? So those are a few challenges that I see. And what I'll do is I'll drop in a link here about the program that we run in Costa Rica. Take a quick look.
Thank you, Edward. I think it's very clear. So, and also you highlighted the difference between like what's happening in UK and Costa Rica, and so it's something that you should consider. I just liked your point on incubators and accelerators. So this is something that we should discuss further. But let us just advance a little bit. Let us think about the strategies. And I would like to invite again to speak on Ignacio. Ignacio, given this technical and market risks, and so we are so diverse in Latin America as well, but when we're talking about deep tech startups, what do you think the strategies would be? What would you recommend to attract more investment? We just heard Edward saying that we lack like a more sophisticated VCs in the region, so they lack still expertise in the deep tech section. And so what would you recommend to attract more investments and also to better develop the ecosystems that we have in Latin America?
I think that there are two sides. One is I'll start with the public sector. I think that if you look at the Israel case, can you hear me well? Because somebody told me that I had echo. Can you hear me well now?
It's a little bit louder, and so it's distorted a little bit, but I can comprehend.
Okay, I'll speak slowly. I don't know what else to do. I lower my volume, so I'll speak slowly. So, from the public sector, I think that there is an opportunity for matching funds and to stimulate more early stage activity and R&D also. And I think that the best benchmark for that is Israel. And for the private sector, I think it's people realizing that there is a fantastic business case to invest in this area, and we have contributed to that by sort of showing the kind of returns that investors can have in the report, in the Deep Tech New Wave report. But I think that the most powerful way will be to have success cases. So when we have IPOs, when we have exits that are over 1 billion, people will begin to see that there is an opportunity. And we already have some. The most visible case is OutZero, which is a cybersecurity company that was sold for $6.5 billion in 2021, coming out of Argentina. But I think that there is an opportunity to have dozens of successful cases. And when that happens, I think money will begin to flow. And I think that there's an opportunity also, that's for sort of investors in general, but I think that there is an opportunity also in the corporate side for corporations to realize that there are new ways, that new business models that they can develop and new ways that they can create value through collaboration with startups and through learning from startups, particularly in health. I think that farmers can learn a lot about the opportunities that are available to them in terms of genuine, globally relevant innovation, and they can learn this from startups.
Good, thank you, Ignacio. So I think it clarifies a lot, and so it's good to hear that our neighbors in the south has like some very good cases on biotech and deep tech as well. So we have lots to learn as well in Brazil. So I would like to hear now Artur, his position, and so what strategies do you think, Artur, we should try to come up to strengthen also the VC scenario and also the ecosystem to better develop in Iberia and Latin America? What's your vision?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm totally aligned with what Ignacio said, but I would like to add some other perspectives. And from my experience and from the long term in the Portuguese market, that it's really similar to Spain, I would say, and into African markets. I think we have to implement a strategy that we have a total alignment with the main stakeholders in this ecosystem. First of all, I would like to share the idea of education and awareness. I think this is something that we have to be really strong about it. Nevertheless, we are speaking about deep tech, but I think the main point, and like stated previously, if we don't have a total vision, what is the project, what is the highlight, and what is the long-term benefits, I think this should be like a bottleneck of any project. Another point that I think that it's really important to highlight is, of course, the government support. In Portugal, there are many projects that there are supported by local government, and I think this can be a huge difference in this kind of projects. I would also like to, something that it's important, it's to mitigate the risk of this kind of products and solutions and projects. So if you can have a risk mitigation of all the solution, I think this can make a huge difference. And last but not least, I think a big partnership between the public and the private can facilitate the projects to go ahead in a faster way. I don't believe in thinking a project in public or neither private. I think if there's a collaboration, I think innovation and technology could go faster in a stronger way. So those would be the main strategies that I would like to share with my fellow colleagues and people online, that I think that can make a huge difference in this kind of projects.
Great to hear that, Arthur. And so I do agree on terms of the public-private partnership. So I think if we'd like to develop these ecosystems, we gotta have like politics and policies that might develop the whole region or the whole country, and not only thinking that entrepreneurs can solve all the problems. So I think there's space to discuss this in between sectors and industries. And so, of course, the public systems are like one of the main stakeholders on the aftermaths of the results on the deep tech solution. So it's great to hear that from you. And I would give the word to Santiago now, just to hear his position in strategies. Santiago, what do you think you do in Latin America and Iberia to better develop the ecosystem, and also
I would just add some points. Hey, somebody's talking there.
Yeah, there is another open microphone, please. Yeah,
it's okay. So first, for example, the collaborative projects in Mexico, for example, in physicians, it's very hard to understand that join forces with economists, with entrepreneurs, so they think that they are best physicians, leaders, and they know about business, about medicine, about everything. So I just want to point that. Second, sometimes, for example, in our experience, if you want to talk with authorities, with the ministries, some people goes only to the health ministry, and it helps in this kind of projects to put together economy, health, communications, so many ministries in a big meeting, so you can have the whole view of the thing, and you can go forward. And the other is that the culture of some investors in Mexico, it's to consider TLR, high TLRs, so that it's difficult because you have a good projects but are in the beginning, and they don't want to invest in that. They don't believe in that. And the fourth is that they compare with North America. Hey, I go to Harvard. Hey, I go to Arizona State. Hey, I go to Pittsburgh, whatever. So it's a high competitive level. So in Mexico, we must push to be competitive with other projects in North America. Thank you.
Thank you, Santiago, for your contribution. So I think you have enriched our position. And yeah, I also think regarding collaborative projects that I would like to explore a little bit further in the next question. But let us hear now what Edward has to say in terms of strategies. Edward, so you are living in two different like situations and realities, such as the UK and Costa Rica. So what do you think? Like you mentioned also the problems that the Europeans faced in the past or the mistakes they took. And so what we should not repeat now to better improve, like also the VC ecosystem, and also the innovative ecosystem for deep techs in Latin America.
Sure. So I've been nomadic since 2020. I left the UK in the pandemic, and so I've spent time in Mexico, Costa Rica, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, and a couple days in Uruguay. But I've really started to get a good feel for what's been happening in Latin America. And I must say I agree with what Artur said. I do think public-private partnerships, when engineered in the correct way, can be really transformative. And I'm really quite proud of the results that we've had with the model that we've tried with the TABI program, the Tropical Agriculture and Bioeconomy Initiative in Costa Rica, where we took a policy that the government set at a national strategic level. We spent a long time figuring out where those policies could be met by private sector innovation. And then we constructed a joint governance board, which consists of 2 universities where you have academics who really know these spaces that we wanted to work in. They have the knowledge, but not the capability to innovate. We brought on board a government-associated organization, CINDE. We also brought on CR Biomed. I think I see Alvaro in the chat as well. And also private investors. So whilst we were building these companies from a very, very early stage, taking 18 months to figure out how we're going to make them, what they should do, who should we even hire as founders in residence, what kinds of technology should we develop, everyone could meet every few months and provide input on the direction that each company concept was going in, so that then we could readjust and make sure that we weren't just building a company for the sake of getting rich, but rather that it's actually going to deliver the goals and learn from all of the experiences of these very smart people that we've brought together. And that's something that I don't think had ever been tried before in Costa Rica. It wasn't something I'd ever done before joining Deep Science Ventures. And I'd say it's fairly unique, but I'd say do more of that. I love the other day I saw it was a Uruguayan government agency putting a call out to run a venture studio alongside a separate call for an accelerator. And so it's great to see that governments are starting to say, yeah, we need more diversification in how we develop these programs. So if you're in the government anywhere, take note. The other thing I would say that's been very helpful is not just positioning innovation from the point of view of just saying we're going to do something in this one country, but rather to cast it in the light of a larger market. So we're building something in Costa Rica, but the goal is really around tropical agricultural innovation. If we build it and it works in Costa Rica, it can work in Brazil, India, and Vietnam. And I think that's the kind of positioning that helps founders and the funders of these programs get out of being too narrowly focused to think about global innovation, global needs. That's also what's going to attract the larger venture capitalists who want to see that kind of ambition to get those large returns.
Very good, Edward. So we are approaching the end of the session, but that's very unfortunate. And so I would like to stay for like a couple more hours to explore what do you guys have to teach us. But unfortunately, we have to finish in 3 minutes. So I just would like, Edward, starting from you, just like your final words, if we're thinking that there are some startups and founders that are watching us right now. So what advice would you give them, or what mistakes would you advise them to avoid in this, like if you're early stage in a market that's not that big as you mentioned? So I think you gave part of the response, but let us start with you, and so after we can continue.
Talk to as many customers as you can before you even start a company. Like really figure out, does it pass a test where people are losing sleep over the problem that you're working on?
I see. I think we lost a little bit your connection. So
my point was, can you hear me?
Yes.
To any founders, make sure you speak to customers well before you start the company.
Good.
Make sure that the problem is, it's like their house is on fire. They are losing sleep over it.
I see.
And only when you've established that is repeatedly something for hundreds of customers, then go start the company, and be very, very careful with who you pick as your co-founder.
Good. Very good ones. Thank you, Edward. So let us go back to Santiago. So like in just a few words, Santiago, what advice would you give to any startup founder that are watching us
Yeah.
right now?
Thank you, Marcio. So validation studies, not only technical, but also economical. So health economy studies with technical validation, for me, it's the key point to move ahead. If you're an entrepreneur, you need money for that, of course. But I think that if you don't have these two case study, you have a lot of troubles. And focus in a health problem, in a specific access problem, specific diagnostic, specific in that country. Not all the apps, not all the software, not specific in one key point for the health system in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Santiago. So, Arthur, in 30 seconds, what advice would you give to startup founders that are like looking for funding or to establish themselves in Latin America or Iberia?
Straight to the point, my fellow speakers already said, identify a clear problem, validate your idea, build a strong team, of course, create a scalable business model, and last but not least, I think we have to embrace agility and interaction between the startup and the companies to go straight to the point. And of course, in the end, we all need a strong networking to go ahead with the business.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Arthur. So the last but not least, Ignacio. So you have started, you're going to finish our session. So what advice would you give to startup founder that are looking for funds, to establish it?
I would like to finish number one, teams, amazing developers that I've seen. Finally, think about how you can quickly shift your diet from capital to revenues. So how can you business as quickly because that's then to
There's an open microphone. If you can just mute, please, so Ignacio can conclude.
I think it's Alvaro.
Okay.
Should I go ahead?
Yeah, please, Ignacio.
Big, number one. An amazing, a very strong, diverse team. Number two, and thirdly, shift your diet from capital to revenues as quickly as possible. So think how you can make this into a business as quickly as possible. And I think part of the answer for that is sort of narrow down the starting point with a certain market and think how you can take the information, narrow it down to something where the market can take as quickly as possible, and then continue your innovation path with good revenues.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ignacio, for your contribution. And so we have to finish to conclude this panel. So I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our panelists for their invaluable contributions and to you, our audience, for being an integral part of this dialogue. So the journey towards innovation is complex. So it's through such discussions that we can pave the way for a tech-driven and innovative future. So in closing, I wish to express my profound thanks to everyone involved in BioLatam Digital 2024, especially Stuart Medina from ACBU, the RBIF, and Simpus Pharma for facilitating this panel. So your active participation and insights are what turns this event into a beacon of success. So thank you. If you'd like to join the next session, you're going to quit this session right now. And so just jump in the next one. I see you in the next section. Okay. Thank you very much. And may we continue to foster these critical conversations beyond today. I see you.